Good evening. Thank you for coming this evening to the Beaverton School District Budget Committee for May 28th, 2024. And for those of you joining us virtually as well as here live. We are going to start with a roll call of our Budget Committee members. And I'll just go down, and if you just want to say, hey, yay, yes, whatever you want to say. So Zone 1, Susan Greenberg. And Budget Committee member for Zone 1, Jessica McBride. Here. Zone 2, Dr. Karen Perez. Here. And Budget Committee member Brian Bean. Here. Zone 3, Dr. Melissa Potter. Here. And Budget Committee member Diane McCartney. I think she's unable to join us tonight. Zone 4, Sunita Garg. And Budget Committee member Alok Metrota. And Zone 5, Ugana Anaya.
I'm here.
And Budget Committee member Krista Billings. Here. Zone 6, Justice Raji.
Here.
And myself here, Heidi Echeverria. Zone 7, Dr. Tammy Carpenter.
Yo.
And Budget Committee member Dr. Lisa Schultz.
Here.
Great, we've got almost everybody on board. We're going to move into our agenda tonight with welcome and opening remarks with Dr. Gustavo Balderas, our superintendent.
So thank you for the Budget Committee, again, for your commitment to our district and our kids. I know staff have provided questions that were provided by community. They're in front of you tonight, and I know will be reviewed here in a bit. Just want to touch base. What I mentioned last time is that funding-wise, we're not facing the reductions that several districts are facing from across, not just across the state, but across the United States. I know they're facing incredible staffing reductions as well as program reductions. So we're really fortunate to hear from past boards, this board, past Budget Committee members, our past Superintendent Don Grotting for all the efforts made to have a reserve to be able to do what we can do to provide the quality education for our kids. So that's just, I just want to say that. But with that being said, we may be in a similar predicament if there isn't a funding change in Salem in terms of changing our funding formula. I know there's a lot of advocacy taking place. We have a long session coming forward, and I urge all the Budget Committee members and my board, I know staff will as well, get together to make sure that we continue to advocate for the needed funded level, not the current. There's this thing called the CSL. It's an acronym, current service level. I call it what we need is the needed funding level that our community expects for our kids and our communities. So look forward to tonight's presentation, answering your questions. But again, we are in, we're going to be having some difficult discussions next year as we prepare for a different type of budget. But this budget, I appreciate the work done. It is a stable budget. It is really a no-cuts budget right now, but in the future, I can't say that will happen. So just thank you for your time and your energy for our kids and for our community.
Thank you.
I'm going to add to that if I can, Chair. Just wanted to, before we get started, I go through a process reminder. So what you see on the screen and what you have in your documents that you have at your station there is the actual motion that we're looking for tonight. And we got a lot of public comment as well as Budget Committee comment around specific program and program offering and information about program. And what I want to bring you back to is what we're actually going to do tonight. Legally, what we need from you is a budget approval that deals with a lot of numbers. And I'll kind of break it out a little bit. That first big number you see, the $1.8 billion, that's our overall budget and appropriation level that we're asking for tonight. And you'll see it's not well worded and difficult to stumble through, but when we make a motion, we'll ask that you actually read from that so that we can get it done in the right way. The next dollar amount you see there is $4.693. That's important. That was established after Ballot Measure 5 and Ballot Measure 50 as Beaverton School District's permanent tax rate. That's what we'll be asking your approval on, and what the board, after they adopt the budget, will actually levy taxes based on that amount for our general operating budget. We can't levy more than that legally. If we levy less than that, we will actually lose dollars in Beaverton School District. The state won't hold us harmless for that. So we've got to levy that rate and amount. So that's fairly non-negotiable in terms of that dollar per thousand. In addition to that, our voters have been supportive of a local option levy to fund teachers in our district. That's the next dollar you see. You see that $1.25 per thousand. That's the levy that we ask our folks to pay for those teachers on an annual basis. And that rate is flat at $1.25 and has been for years. So that's the rate we've legally asked our public to approve, and they did. So that's what we'll be seeking tonight. In addition to that, we have another levy, which is essentially our capital levy that pays for our bonded debt. Our bonded debt next year will be just under $89 million. You see the exact amount there. That's the amount we will levy for debt service. So technically speaking, we're asking you to approve an appropriation amount for the district by fund and function. We're asking you to approve a dollar amount for our tax rate on our general operating budget, another one for our local option levy, and yet another one for our debt service on our debt obligations for the school district. So I just wanted to kick it off that way because I know the way it reads and the way it looks like a lot of words and numbers on a page, but technically that's what this body's doing. You're going to refer it to the school board next. School board will hold a hearing, and then they'll go through the same process of making these same appropriations and tax rates. So thank you, Chair. That's all. I just wanted to add that.
Thank you. Moving on to our next agenda item, approval of the minutes from the May 14th, 2024 Budget Committee meeting. If there is anybody who would like to make a motion to approve, or are there any corrections, additions you want to make? Susan?
I move that we approve the minutes from the May 14th, 2024 Budget Committee meeting.
And everybody has those. Is there a second?
I second it.
Thank you, Sunita. Those all in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Abstain? All right. Approval of the minutes has been done. We're going to move into a review of our written public comment. We have, I believe, 2 written public comments that were submitted recently, and so we have those here in our packets. I believe they are about page 4 in, if I didn't shift mine around. We're not going to read them per se. I'll give you a moment to read those. And those are part of the written public comments, so those can be found online as well then, is that correct? Or will be found online?
They will be.
Okay. Okay, I know some of you have already had a chance to read those. Moving ahead, we're going to move into adjustments to the proposed budget. So Jessica Jones, our budget manager, it's your turn.
So following the written public comment in your packet, there is a double-sided piece of paper. It shows what our proposed budget from the May 14th meeting was and what we're recommending that you approve tonight. There are no adjustments to the proposed budget.
Excuse me, did you say there are no adjustments? Is that what you said?
No adjustments.
Great, thank you, Jessica. Moving next into our Budget Committee final comments, really an opportunity for each of us at the table to round robin and have our final comments as it relates to this budget. And anybody who wants to jump in and start, you're more than welcome to. Susan, yes.
I just want to congratulate the school district for a budget where we're not seeing any cuts And we're keeping our, at least for one more year, our social workers in place to support our students that are dealing with mental health issues. But I just want to congratulate you on such an amazing achievement.
Go ahead, Dr. Lisa.
Thank you. Yes, I also would like to thank the board and the district for, past members for creating this reserve. It's really quite luxurious, it feels like, to have that to rely on this year. And I also want to note the superintendent's comments about, what future years might possibly look like. And those are really tough times, very hard decisions. I know the district will be working very hard in the upcoming year. I wanted to acknowledge all of the comments that we got, the students and community members that came to the last meeting and presented comments about the SRO, YRO program. And given that, I know that, and also thank the past board for the creation of the Sea Change report, all the work that's gone into that. I do think this is a issue for the board to be looking at. However, it doesn't escape me that the $750,000 that we're going to be spending in this upcoming year, and then also that's going to increase in future years very quickly in the next year. It looks like we're going to be looking not so much in terms of dollars, but everything sort of translates in my head to FTE. And how many FTE is that? And again, this is not the subject for our budget committee this evening, but I do hope that the board, along with the district, will look at those dollars carefully, as we're going to have to balance a lot of things in the future. So again, my great appreciation to all of you for your hard work.
Yes, Jessica?
Thank you so much to Mike and Jessica and Gus for all of your hard work and all of the staff's hard work. After hearing the testimony from community members and students 2 weeks ago, I spent a lot of time reviewing the Sea Change report and the changes that the district made as a result of the report. And I asked a lot of follow-up questions, and thank you so much for answering those in such detail. And as a result, I believe that BSD is working to address the past issues with the program, but I'm still concerned about the success of this program as well as with the increasing cost. I'm incredibly thankful for all that our police do to keep our students and teachers safe, and I want our schools and communities to be prepared for the worst case scenario. However, study after study has shown that having armed officers in schools does not increase student safety, and I believe that BSD is investing in the YSO program because they expect it to be effective in increasing student safety. And my ask is that the specific determiners of success and those key indicators are made public so that the school board, district administration, and public can all be aware of how effective the program is. Additionally, throughout this budget process, it has become very clear that the district must be extremely wise with the limited resources. In the coming years, the cost of the YSO program will continue to grow at the same time that BSD will be forced to draw on more and more reserves. I worry that the YSO program is not sustainable, and as a taxpayer and as a constituent, I expect my dollars to go toward effective and sustainable programs in our schools. Tonight, I will be hesitantly voting yes, with the expectation that more will be done to share evaluation metrics, and that and with the assurance that academic, mental, and behavioral health supports for students will not be cut in future years to pay for the YSO program. And I will continue to follow this discussion in June with interest.
Others? Yes, Sugana.
Just much like Jessica, I will be voting yes with some reservations. I have always made it abundantly clear where I stand on the YSO, SRO, whatever you choose to call it, program. We heard from our committee members, and we've been hearing from them for the past 2 weeks. They've reacted overwhelmingly at the amount that we are budgeting for this program. while we are not here to discuss the program itself, we're here to approve the budget. But I must chip it in tonight that when I ran for school board, one of the priorities I had was ensuring that we remove uniformed officers in our schools. While that is not the case, we cannot continue to ignore the concerns of our community members. And I just want to let them know tonight that we heard you. I, for one, I heard you. And because I've asked some questions over and over again, and I've been assured that there'll be some kind of oversight, or rather, we're going to be hearing, getting data from the program to see how successful it's been implemented in our schools. And with that, I would be voting yes, but again, with some reservations. And that is stemming from the fact that time and time again, we have heard from our community members, we have heard their concerns about these programs, especially as regards to our students of color. And I cannot sit here as a person of color and totally ignore those concerns. So once again, I will tell you that I heard you. And at some point, we have to ask ourselves, are their concerns, are their voices not valid? Are their concerns not credible? And tonight, I will answer that question. Your concerns are abundantly credible. Your voices are definitely valid. But as one school board member tonight, I'll be voting yes with a lot of reservation. And I would also reiterate that I heard you abundantly clear, and I share those concerns with you. Thank you very much.
Yes, Sunita?
I want to thank Mike, Jessica, and Gustavo for a budget where we are not cutting any employees. Like I said last time, this year is going to be a review year for behavioral health and wellness, and I hope we get information on that so that when it comes time to make any voting, that we know what's going on. And it is concerning about SROs when we hear from people that they feel unsafe. When this was done, it was done based on the recommendation of Sea Change. But there are still so many concerns that we heard, and that tells us that there is a population who feels unsafe. So maybe we need to look at this further and think about what more changes we can make in the program so that our kids feel safe, all the student population feels safe. And I will be voting yes with the expectations that about the behavioral health, we know what the funding is going to be and why, on the basis of what we will be making the changes, and the SROs, what changes we can expect in the next year. Thanks.
First of all, thank you so much for the work on the budget. I know our community has voted for the bond and the levy and expect us to be good financial stewards of that money. We are putting our best foot forward in the budget, in my opinion, that we have with what you have shared with us. I appreciated seeing how much we spend per school, how much we're spending on behavioral health and wellness, and really how all of these different pieces are connected to our strategic plan as well. And those are initiatives that our community has moved forward for us. With respect to the program of YSOs, it is something that the board as a whole has voted on for the first time last year because it became more than 150,000. In the past, boards hadn't voted on it, but past boards had worked to look at, and actually it was the students that brought it forward before I even came on the board as something that was something that they wanted us to look at, the board to look at. And so the previous board before I joined did a survey that gave them some information on the community actually wanting to have majority having YSOs in the buildings. At the same time, that survey wasn't really scientific data. It needed to be improved, and they recognized that after they had put it out and gotten that information. So after that is when we, the board asked for the sea change report, and then we have the staff came up with how we're going to respond to the sea change report, and the commitment to what would be our commitment on the district side, because there were pieces of when we were calling YSOs, not that the YSOs were coming, but we were calling them as a district to come into our building. So we've put in different steps to have, for example, principals then talk to their directors to then have, before they call a YSO, obviously if it's an emergency, they would call right away. But if it's something that would impact, or they're not quite sure, or even if they are sure to call the YSO and it's not an emergency at that particular moment, then they speak to their directors, and there's trainings that we put into place. So with the IGA as well, have pointed out some of the things that we would like to change. And then the city has actually put forth a dashboard that community can go and see with their data. What we found with the first report that we got, we also committed to, as a board, twice a year looking at the YSO information. The first one was in January, and we looked at some data and noticed that the dashboard data from the city was different than our data, because they're putting in when they have contact with students, but not necessarily just in our schools. Our data then is about our students, and our staff meets regularly with the city to go over our data and see what's happening. Our next report comes in June. And so the June meeting is when we'll, as a board, be talking about this program, even though this isn't, we're talking about it now, but it's actually something that the board will take up in June. And there'll be time for our community to have voice and, send us messages or come to the meeting or put in their comments if they can't come online, or they can also put in to speak to us about that particular topic. If they can't come, they can actually do it online as well. With that said, all the data will tell us about how we're actually using them. It doesn't necessarily tell us how our students feel or our community feels overall. So that'll be something for the board to actually talk about and see, is there an update to the sea change report where we can have the voice of our students and our community as a whole give input. So all those pieces will be something that the board can take up in June. And as people have recommendations and pieces, that's something that we can take up in our June board meeting. But thank you I appreciate our budget committee members have spent hours watching the videos of the sea change. When we had those conversations, they've delved in, and I offered up my time to, if you had questions, please call, and Mike did as well. So we've had multiple conversations and wanted to make sure that people had the information they needed. Even though we aren't voting on YSOs today, it's something that it's actually a board action because it's over 150,000 that we will be taking up in June. So I just wanted to clarify that and know that we're not ignoring students' voice or community voice, but it's something that is actually a board decision that we'll be looking at in June. So thank you.
Thank you, Karen. Others? Go ahead, Justice.
Thank you. First, I want to thank the budget committee members who are community members. As board members, we're here every month, and you are not. And we thank you for the time committed to this process. I think, I'm not going to repeat concepts that others have said, but the thing I want to share with this body and with the community that's listening is, going through this for the first time in my seat, I'm also was learning along with the community the process, right? And so some folks were disappointed to hear like how these different pieces work, and that disappointment is a reasonable thing. I think it's important, though, that we do appreciate, having a civic process, having, that when people in our community bring forth issues to the body, whatever body, because something as a long time in community and human services, sometimes you just go to the body that you can go to let folks know what you're feeling, even if that's not the body that can maybe give you relief. And we should be respectful of that. We should understand that in our roles here as board members, as administration, as community members, when you maybe are on another public-facing body that may be like, well, that's not under my purview. Doesn't matter. The community is trying to find an answer, is trying to get their voice heard. So I want to thank community members that have come in and spoke and shared their thoughts, shared their feelings. And I want to thank board members and other folks here who have committed your time, to review our budget, which is a large, complex document with a lot of work reflected in it and how it's created, and also the work that it represents in terms of how we serve our community and what we produce in terms of educating our students. And I look forward to those other conversations that will be the purview of the board in regard to the YSO program. But also, I don't want to lose light of, we also have a whole lot of other work represented within there. And, finding that balance and, being in the situation that we're in as a district that, we are not making cuts to what's happening in the classroom. But we, do need to be prepared for future years where that may be more challenging. So thank you all.
Tammy?
Thank you to Dr. Balderas and Mike for fitting me into your very busy afternoon with my last-minute questions. And I want to acknowledge Dr. Perez's comments about us hearing additionally from the community at our upcoming board meeting, but also honor the fact that for some of them, this is not the first time they've had to share their traumas with us, and it's sometimes a big ask for us to have to hear your personal experience that was negative and have you share that with us in ways that it's, I feel bad having to ask for that in order to be moved to change. So I just want to acknowledge that. And also with, for the board, we do follow policies, and one of our policies is the district purchasing policy. And in that, the board declares its intention to seek maximum educational value for every dollar expended. And I'm just wondering about the $750,000 that we shift to police departments from our educational funds. And I wonder what our community would think about us filling gaps in police budgets with money that could be going into the classroom. So I think I'm interested in hearing what the community thinks about that as well. People's experience with our SRO program, as well as the shifting of educational dollars to police departments, is something that also is on my mind. And finally, we've done the Sea Change report, and I think it was very thorough and comprehensive. I don't believe that the district asked the consultant to explore what would it look like if we eliminated the program. I don't think that was part of the ask that we did. So that wasn't part of what the report offered. But they did offer a lot of substantive changes that we could make to the program. There were a lot, and they were based on our focus groups and, questionnaires, and it was really thorough and based on best practices and, what other similar districts are doing. In my mind, I think we could have gone farther. I wasn't a part of the board then. I would really like to reexamine that report, the Sea Change report. I think there was a lot of good stuff in there. I don't know that we necessarily have to go back to our community and ask again. We would probably get similar answers. So I think we can potentially move forward with the information that we have. Totally understand, this is the budget committee, and we have a certain task, and I'm going to be voting yes to move the budget out of the budget committee. And I'm hopeful that as we bring it to our next business meeting in June, that we can talk about ways to satisfy the community's concerns in an expeditious manner. I know everyone that sits up here centers equity. And I think most of us are aware that, delay is a tactic of white supremacy. And so when we continue to delay change and hear from our community that it's not enough, then I think we need to think about how we can move forward in a pace that is going to get us to a place that balances safety for our whole community. So I will be a yes vote for today, and I appreciate everyone's thoughtfulness to this issue. It's definitely been near and dear to my heart, and I'm hopeful that we can see some change in the near term. Thank you.
Others? We can just go down the table now if we want. I see you, Melissa, next up, who has not, just briefly even, it doesn't have to be much, and it can be a simple, I will be voting to whatever.
I appreciate the chair's coaching for those of us who are new. Thank you. I express the same gratitude for the work. It was quite a few weeks ago where I bumped into Mike and said, "How are you doing?" And he said, "We just published the budget." And I was like, "That's cool." And then I got the budget and I was like, "That's huge." So I didn't quite honor the significance of what you had accomplished by producing this product. So, and I do appreciate other comments saying that there's a lot of work represented in this, and I'm pretty proud of a lot of it, and proud of our district. So thank you.
Thank you. Alok, would you like to have a final comment? Yes.
I'm usually a very quiet guy, but if I'm prompted, then I can speak for a very long time. You ask for it. So now I've been part of the Equity and Inclusion Committee as well as here. And so I think a lot of the concerns that we are talking about, I think there is a connection there in just, because in the end it is how we are using very effectively what the Equity and Inclusion Committee is doing across the community, and then maybe there is a way to include what they have done in being able to achieve what we are trying to do with getting the concerns addressed with the YSO as well, because they've done a lot of good work in trying to achieve exactly that equity and inclusion.
Thank you. Thank you, Alok. Brian?
Yes, thank you for giving me a moment here. I would definitely echo my appreciation, Michael and Jessica in particular. You've been very open and receptive to questions and comments, especially for me being a new Budget Committee member, and I really sincerely appreciate that. I'm also looking at the budget. I can see an incredible amount of work and thought has gone into it. We are a very large and changing and diverse community, and I think this represents a very good faith effort to meet the needs of all the students. I personally will have my final child starting, so I'll have 4 in the Beaverton School District next year, and I feel very comfortable with the direction of the budget for next year, and I plan on voting yes, so thank you.
Krista?
I just want to thank everybody again as well for the Budget Committee. I don't want to reiterate many of the points that people made, but I definitely have the same concerns on the SRO program, and I really look forward to the board taking that up. So thank you for taking that on after the committee finishes.
Great. And I will be voting to approve the budget as well. Much appreciate the public comment that we have received this budget season or this budget year. Having been through this for 9 years now, we've seen a lot, and extremely grateful. Like, this process couldn't happen without our public comment, our families, our teachers, our students, those of us who volunteer to be on this committee. And so thank you to everybody who has participated. It's a very important part of that process. I am hopeful that and know that next month the board will be taking up some of this that we had heard of with respect to YSOs and some of the considerations that may need to play out in the future. With that said, though, extremely grateful. Jessica, Michael, Gustavo, and everybody who is behind you on your teams doing this work. We are very fortunate this year. Some of us have sat on this committee during years where we were making tremendous cuts, and it was heart-wrenching. And I'm very, very happy to see that there's work of prior boards that have taken the steps to make sure that we here in the school district can sort of breathe. But as Dr. Balderas mentioned early on in the welcoming remarks, it's not time to, just sit tight and assume that all is well, because we still have to do the work and work with our legislators and really see that we can really fully fund schools here in the state of Oregon. So with that said, thank you, everybody on the committee, for your service and for the work that you're doing, and for the public for participating in this process. It's an absolute need that we have. With that, I will.
Madam Chair, can I
Yes,
just
go ahead,
make one other comment?
Lisa.
I would really like to thank you for your service as chair of this committee. This is, I don't know how many times you have done this now, but I am most appreciative for your guidance.
Thank you. So we're going to move into, unless there are any other final comments. Okay. We're going to move into our next agenda item, which is approval of the budget and the tax levies, and to see if we have a motion, if somebody would like to make a motion. I see a finger. Your finger is very small down there. So, yes, Susan.
I don't always have to be the one. Okay, so motion to approve 2024-25 budget and tax levies. I move that the Beaverton School District budget in the amount of $1,813,709,979 for all funds for 2024-25 be approved. The permanent tax rate of $4.693 per $1,000 of assessed value be assessed in support of the general fund. A local option tax rate of $1.25 per $1,000 of assessed value be assessed in support of the general fund. And a tax of $88,702,817 be approved for the service of bonded debt obligations of the school district.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
I second the motion.
Thank you, Lisa. Any discussion? We've had our discussion. Okay, so all those in favor, please say aye. Maybe raise your hand as well, just so we can get a visual. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. Any abstentions? Okay, with that, the budget for this next year, I'm looking for the years, 2024-25 budget has been passed. And it will move into the next meeting in June, which is a board meeting. So with that, closing remarks, Dr. Balderas.
Again, I want to really appreciate you, Madam Chair, for your leadership and coordination. So thank you, and the rest of the Budget Committee. I know there's been a lot of discussion regarding school resource officers or UFI resource officers and the Sea Change report. I know the Sea Change report was in progress when I arrived, and I did talk to Pooja, who led the effort, the consultant. And I know that there was 11% off a survey of some kids. It wasn't a broad survey that she had done, but about 11% of the kids did not want SROs on our campuses, where 89% of the kids did not understand what the SROs were or wanted them. So I think going to the point being made. I think next meeting in June, we're going to have more of a discussion in terms of data, SRO data. And I would probably recommend to the board, in terms of if you want cleaner data, to hire a consultant to really look at a scientific study and research study to look at what the community really says, just for information. Again, the board decides on program, the board decides on budget, on contracts, but to really get an understanding of what the community is actually asking for, like Dr. Carpenter mentioned, in terms of, what's the community saying? And that would be helpful to get an outside third party to come in and just provide the board data. And that would probably be a recommendation from me if we move in that way. So the board has just more information that's scientifically created and processed. So, but for tonight, 1.8 billion. It's a lot of money. It is a lot of. It's a big budget. Talking to some of the budget committee members when I was eating some of the corn back there in the back, and it's eating dinner. That's a large dollar amount, and we're almost 90% people. So I know that includes a lot of other construction and so forth, but we have a lot of people that do great things for our district, and we have a great community that supports us, and we need to continue to do whatever we can to continue to do what we do for our kids, and that is having the best school district in Oregon. I truly believe this is the best district in Oregon, and data proves that out as well for our large systems. And how do we continue to have the best district in Oregon is by continuing to really advocate down in Salem for the best funding we can to continue what our community expects. But for tonight, I want to thank you all for your time commitment, for your countless hours, for your questions. I know that when I call Money Mike here, that's his nickname, Money Mike, to be able to answer your questions, and we're going to be here for you throughout the process. And if there are changes to the budget, which I don't foresee in typical years, we would come back in the fall. I don't see that happening. So, but in future years, if there are some changes, we would, again, continue to inform the Budget Committee as a whole. So thank you, Madam Chair, for your leadership.
Thank you. And just a final comment. I always like to think about how leaving this committee, how we can all be further advocating, right, from what Dr. Balderas was saying, how can we become advocates? How can our kids become advocates, our families, our teachers I know are, our staff are, but just how we can further improve that, because this work doesn't end at this table. The work continues year after year after year after year. And for those of you who've been around many years, you've seen and heard how difficult it is. And so just thinking about how can I envision myself as a better advocate? Does that mean talking to my local leaders, my local elected leaders, state electeds, potentially federal electeds, whatever it may be, but really putting that message out there about how we need to continue funding for education is critical. So thank you for a great meeting and for all the hard work that's being done. And with that, we adjourn the meeting.